Most people scrolling through social media right now have no idea how close they are to making a life-altering mistake. Not because they're bad people, not because they're criminals, but because they trusted a headline instead of understanding the law. Right now, one sentence is spreading everywhere like wildfire. Breaking Supreme Court Order 8-1 decision. Just changed both the First and Second Amendment. That sentence is powerful, it's emotional, and it's doing something very dangerous, because it mixes truth with misunderstanding. There was an 8-1 Supreme Court decision involving the Second Amendment, and there is a major Supreme Court battle involving the First Amendment that directly affects gun owners, gun businesses, and gun speech, but they are not the same case. And confusing them isn't just an academic error, it's the kind of mistake that shows up later, in court documents, in arrest reports, and in moments where people say, "I didn't know it worked like that." This video is not here to scare you, it's here to stop you from being careless, because the people who lose rights the fastest are not the loud ones. They're the ones who assumed everything would work out. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what changed, what didn't change, and why precision matters more than passion when it comes to your rights. Let's start with the case at the center of this storm. United States versus Rahimi. Strip away the politics, the tweets, the rage posts, and the YouTube thumbnails, and the legal question was actually very simple. Can the federal government temporarily stop someone from possessing firearms if that person is under a domestic violence restraining order? And a court has formally found that the person is a credible threat to someone else as physical safety? The Supreme Court answered, yes. If a judge makes a legal finding that you are a real danger to another person, the government can temporarily disarm you while that court order is active, and doing so does not automatically violate the Second Amendment. That's the holding. That's the reality. And now we need to slow down, because what the court did not say is far more important than what it did say. The court did not erase the Second Amendment. The court did not say accusations are enough. The court did not say states can take guns whenever they feel nervous. The court did not approve broad, permanent gun confiscation. Rahimi is narrow, painfully narrow. It applies to a specific legal situation involving a specific kind of court order, issued through a process that includes findings and procedures. But here's where people mess up. They hear temporary and think safe. They hear civil order and think no big deal. They hear not criminal and relax. That's how people fall through cracks they didn't even know existed. Let me show you how this actually plays out in real life. Meet Mike. Mike has never been convicted of a crime. He owns firearms legally. He follows the rules. He's the guy who thinks laws apply to other people. Then Mike goes through a breakup. It's emotional. It's messy. Words are exchanged that shouldn't have been. One day, Mike gets served with paperwork, a protective order request. Mike doesn't panic. He rolls his eyes. This is family court drama, he thinks. It's not criminal. It's temporary. It'll blow over. That moment, right there, is where futures quietly collapse. Because if that protective order includes a credible threat finding, federal law can snap into place instantly. Suddenly, if Mike possesses a firearm while that order is active, he could be committing a federal felony, not because he shot anyone, not because he threatened someone with a gun, but because he underestimated a piece of paper. Temporary orders can produce permanent consequences. That's not fear. That's how the system works. Now here's the question everyone asks next. How can the Supreme Court say this and still claim the Second Amendment exists? Here's the answer most people don't want to hear, but need to. Even the strongest pro-Second Amendment decisions have always said the right is not unlimited. Not unlimited does not mean meaningless. It means regulated in extreme situations. In Rahimi, the court explained that American law has always allowed the government to intervene when someone posed a real threat of violence. Historically, there were laws designed to stop people who terrorized others or threatened harm with weapons. In simple language, the court said this: if you are a genuine danger, society has always had tools to step in, and temporary disarmament fits that tradition. Now pay attention to this next part, because it tells you how serious this decision really is. Rahimi was decided 8-1. That's not a close call. That's not a shaky compromise. Only one justice dissented. That signals something important. This is not an extreme ruling. It's a stabilizing one. Another detail people keep missing: Rahimi was a facial challenge. That means the defendant argued the law was unconstitutional in every possible situation. That is the hardest constitutional argument to win. The court didn't say the law is always valid forever. It said the law is clearly valid in situations like this one. That's a huge difference. Now let AS talk about the part of the headline that pulls in the First Amendment, because this is where confusion really explodes. Rahimi itself was not a First Amendment case. The First Amendment issue comes from a separate Supreme Court fight, but it hits the gun world in a way most people underestimate. Here's the issue, stripped down. The government cannot secretly pressure private companies to punish speech it doesn't like. That includes gun speech, gun advocacy, gun organizations, gun-related businesses. Why does this matter? Because modern power doesn't always come with handcuffs. Sometimes it comes with phone calls, with suggestions, with regulators quietly reminding companies who controls their licenses. And suddenly, banks stop working with you. Payment processors drop you. Insurance disappears. Platforms vanish. No law passed. No vote taken. But speech gets suffocated. That's why the First Amendment side of this story matters so much to gun owners. Because the Second Amendment cannot survive if the First Amendment is quietly choked off. If you can't speak, if you can't organize, if you can't fund legal challenges, then the right exists only on paper. So when people say both amendments changed, the smart interpretation is this. The Supreme Court clarified how courts must judge certain gun laws under the Second Amendment. At the same time, it reinforced limits on how far the government can go when pressuring speech under the First Amendment. Two different battles, one shared battlefield. Now let's bring this back to you. What actually changed in your life today? Here's the reality. If you are a gun owner, you have more to lose than most people in moments of conflict. That means you have to be calmer, more boring, more careful. Because the law does not forgive mistakes involving firearms the way it forgives other mistakes. Most people don't lose rights in dramatic moments. They lose them in boring ones. A court date skipped, a message sent in anger, a form not read carefully, a restraining order treated like gossip. The law doesn't care how good you usually are. It cares what's written, what's filed, and what you did next. Rahimi is not the end of the Second Amendment. And it's not proof that nothing is changing. It's a warning light. Rights are real. Government power has limits. But ignorance is expensive. If you only remember one thing from this entire video, remember this. Precision protects you. Emotion exposes you. Don't rely on viral headlines. Don't rely on internet bravado. And don't assume temporary means safe. Stay informed, stay calm, stay smart. Because learning the law the hard way is the most expensive education there is.